And then when we look at these other angles, this one seems to be less than that corner, so that one would be the smaller of the two, the acute. And then this one, because it is a little bit more than the corner, and this one's way more than corner, these are both obtuse. So let's go ahead and check that. And when I submitted, it says, very good, you know how to classify these shapes. Okay, on to page 3. There are other important angles that Sean and Kyle need to know about. These angles come in pairs. Play the animation to explore some important angles. Two angles that share a vertex and a ray, but they don't share any part of their interiors, are called adjacent. So another way I like to think of adjacent is that they touch. So they're saying that angles BAC, which is right here, there I've highlighted it for you, as well as angle CAD, which is this one over here. These are both adjacent, and that's because they share one side. And that angle that they, or I'm sorry, that ray that they share is right AC. So angle FGH and EGI are vertical angles, as well as off to the sides, FGE and HGI are vertical angles. So when two lines intersect, two pairs of non-adjacent angles are formed, and these angles are called vertical angles. So when we look at angle FGH, that is talking about F to G to H. That's talking about this angle up here. And they're saying that that angle is equal to EGI, which is this angle down here. So it's saying these two are equal to each other, which when you look at the picture, it appears that they look kind of like they would be. But also, if we look at this other pair of FGE, that's this angle right here. They're saying that that's a vertical angle, or it's across from HGI, which is right here. So those two angles are also equal to each other. So when two Sorry about that. When two lines intersect, two pairs of non-adjacent angles are formed. These angles are called vertical angles. Drag point H to change the intersecting lines. So they want us to drag this point H. And what do we notice about the measures of the vertical angles? So if we look at it now, it's starting out where we've got before FGE and HGI were smaller. Now that I have raised H, they're both equal to 28. And also at the same time, if I change it like here, when I had 28, these were vertical angles were 152. But when I change the 28, it also affects those other two angles. So notice that, you know, it matters for both of the angles when we do that. You should have noticed that the vertical angles always have the same measure. Mathematicians use the letter M to stand for measure, so we can write measure of angle FGH is equal to measure of angle EGI. And then the measures of the adjacent angles always have a sum of 180. So that is what that looks like. But then the second part goes on to say that the measures of the adjacent angles always have a sum of 80. So we can write the measure of angle FGH which is this angle right here, plus the measure of angle HGI, which is this one, HGI, is equal to 180. So this is a straight line, 180 degrees, is what that's saying. So we can write that, another example, so the measure of angle FGH, which is this one right here, FGH, plus the measure of angle HGI, which is this one, is equal to 180 degrees. And we call these supplementary angles. Another thing to note about supplementary angles is that they do not have to be adjacent to each other. So any two angles are called supplementary if their sum, which is when you add them up, if that is equal to 180. And so in this first example, 85 and 95, when we add up 85 plus 95, we get 180, so these ones are. But then also when we look at this other example over here, we've got an angle that's 50 degrees plus 130 degrees. So these, if they add up to 180, are still supplements of each other. And even though these two aren't even touching or sharing any adjacent sides, they're still supplements of each other. So this next activity says, drag the ray on the protractor to draw the supplement of the angle shown. So because a supplement is always going to add up to 180, we have to figure out what number added to 45 is going to be equal to 180. So basically, to figure this out, you would do the opposite thinking of adding, and we could take 45 away from both of these sides to figure out what that answer should be. So I'm going to longhand or subtraction this because I don't have a calculator handy. So I would have to start by borrowing here. So I'm 10 minus 5, which is 5, and then 7 minus 4 is 3, so I get 135. So let's go ahead and check 135 degrees and see if that's correct. So there we are at 135, and it tells us that is correct. So now we're going to move on to complementary angles. So complementary angles is two angles that their sum measures or adds up to a total measure of 90 degrees. So they don't actually have to be adjacent and touching to be complementary, just as long as the sum of the two numbers is equal to 90. So I'm actually going to start with the two that are adjacent over here. This one's 60 degrees plus 30 degrees. And when we add those up, that is equal to 90 degrees. And then when we look at this other pair, I tried to highlight it just so that you could see that if you were to slide this piece down, you could see how it would make a 90-degree angle anyways, but we could verify that mathematically by adding together the 50 and the 40. So 5 plus 4 is 9, so it's 90 degrees. So both of these are complementary angles. Alright, so this one wants us to drag the ray on the protractor to draw the complement or the complementary number of the angle shown. So the angle that's shown is 45 degrees. And remember that complementary angles are going to add up to 90 degrees total. So to solve this one, we would need to subtract 45 from both sides. Which takes care of this. And we get left with our unknown angle should be 90 minus 45, which is 45. So let's go ahead and check and see if that's correct. Wow, this is harder than it looks to get right on 45. There we go, and it says that is correct. And then it says press the next button if we want to create another pair, which I'm not going to do right now because I'll let you practice that on your own if you would like. Alright, this next part, page 4, says, can you solve the puzzle to show what you've learned about angles? Drag the angle measure that best describes the measure of each of the 4 angles. Use what you know about vertical angles and adjacent and supplementary. So they're telling us to remember all of those. So let's go ahead and first take a look at, well, we knew when we had vertical angles angles, we knew that they were equal to each other, and that if we had two that created like a straight line, those are called supplementary, and they equaled 180. So using my knowledge of what I already know also about like a 90-degree angle, if I were to look at this straight line right here, and think about a 90-degree angle, I know that a 90-degree angle, oops, let's do it and just erase all that. A 90-degree angle is going to be no bigger than that, and I can tell that this angle right here, CEB, that angle is actually larger than 90 degrees. So I need to look up here, and any that are bigger than 90 are most likely going to be, and there's only one of them, it's this 129. So I'm pretty sure this 129 has to go here. So for now I'm going to fill in 129. And then the next thing I need to think about is a supplementary angle. So I know that this angle right here, in combination with my 129, because they are supplementary, they are going to add up to 180. So to figure out this missing one over here, I can do 129, or 180 minus 129, which I might as well just do that right here. So 10 minus 9 is 1765. So maybe 51, is that? Yep, that's a choice. So I'm going to go with this one is most likely 51. So the next thing I can notice is that this angle here, CEA, which is 51, is going to also be equal to its vertical angle, because they're vertical angles, they're equal to each other, so that vertical angle is also equal to 51. And then the same would go for this other angle that's up top. So we've got the 129 CEB, but if we looked at AED, that's a vertical angle, so that one's also 129. So I'm going to plug those in and see if they're correct. And it says, well done, you have labeled all 4 angles with the correct measure. So let's move on to our next page. How many pages do we have? Jeez. Alright, now you can solve this puzzle. Can you solve this puzzle, actually, is what it says. Demonstrate what you know about the angle relationships of intersecting lines in the diagram. Lines A, B, and CD intersect at point E. Drag the tiles to complete the equations. Awesome, so let's get that one. So this first question down here says measure of angle AED, that is AED, is equal to something. Oh, my bad. It says measure of angle AED plus what is equal to 180. So that plus right there threw me for a minute. So I need to add to that something that equals 1, would give us a total of 180. So if you look over here at this diagram, you can clearly see that there is a 180 supplementary angle right next to it, and that it is obviously supposed to be labeled X. So if we come over here and look at our choices, we would want to say that the measure of angle AED plus the measure of angle X, which is right there, would be what we want to put to equal 180. So now let's look at this second one. We've got the measure of angle AEC is equal to what? So when we look at our choices up here, we've got that BED is equal to X degrees. But we know that because of vertical angles, that if BED is equal to X, then CAE is also equal to X degrees. But the only other choices that they leave us are 180 minus X, just 180, or 90. So we know that all together, this angle CEA plus angle CEB is equal to 180. So the only way we could really express that would be to subtract x from both sides. So we would get that the measure of CEB, oof, I messed up. Let me try this again. CEB would be equal to the 180 minus x, which is right there. So 180 minus x degrees. And then we also already stated up here that AEC, which was this one, was also equal to x. So let's put those in and see if that's correct. And that says well done, so we got that one correct. So because of the length of this video, I'm going to cut it off here, and I'm going to stop and just call this one the supplementary and complementary angles. And we will go ahead and be finished for now, and I will go ahead and make another video for the second half of this lesson that involves the triangle rules. So I will see you hopefully on the other side.